They say that home is where the heart is, but sometimes it's not the haven that we believe it to be. Sometimes it holds secrets that are only discovered upon a closer inspection. Number 5. In October of 2007, Brian Trost and his wife Susan bought a home in Weldon Spring, Missouri for $450,000. The house seemed perfect, with a clear view of the 3rd and 4th holes at the Whitmore Country Club. Since it had been built in 1988, it would most likely need a good cleaning and some repairs would need to be done. Once the sale had been finalized, the Trosts were ready to move in and made their way to the newly acquired property. Susan was walking through the house for the first time since they had purchased it and noticed that a spider had spun its web around the light fixture in the ceiling. As she continued further through the house, she saw that there were more webs in the bar area and even more were found in the basement. When they'd done the initial walkthrough of the house before purchasing it, there hadn't been any webs in sight. Eventually, she made her way to the kitchen where she spotted a small piece of wallpaper that had come loose from the wall. As she inspected it more closely, she pulled on it and a spider came running out from behind the wallpaper. She figured that the house had not been properly cleaned in some time, as is usual when moving into a new place. But as the days went by, she would find new webs and spiders everywhere in the house. They had infested the fireplace, the pantry, the blinds, and even the air registers. They were even present in the showers, and Susan narrowly dodged one while taking a shower on one occasion. One day, her son started screaming, and she found that he'd stumbled upon a spider in the basement. She caught it and decided to look it up on the internet and found that it was a brown recluse spider. They're not often deadly, but if they do bite a human, medical attention is definitely advised. A pest control company would make weekly visits to the home, laying down spider traps and spraying both inside and outside of the house. Susan also had the drywall and insulation removed in order for the exterminator to spray for any creepy crawlies that may be hiding behind them. But it was to no avail. The spiders kept reappearing, and in 2008, the Trosts sued the previous owners of the house since they'd kept the information regarding the spiders from them. They tried to claim from their insurance, but the claim was denied as their policy didn't cover the insects. In the end, it was found that the house had been infested with 4,500 to 6,000 spiders. Number 4. Joshua Seguin, a 40-year-old man from Dutchess County, New York, was driving in Georgia when he was pulled over by police. They discovered that he didn't have a driver's license and they decided to search his vehicle. To their surprise, in the back of Seguin's truck, they found 5 undersized sharks that he was transporting in a circular tank. It would later be discovered that they were sandbar sharks, which are listed as a protected species. He was immediately arrested not only for possessing the sharks, but for also driving without a license. Upon being questioned, he admitted to police that he was driving home to New York where he planned to sell them. He also admitted to owning even more sharks at his home. The New York Department of Environmental Conservation was informed of the situation and they set out to investigate. They found that Seguin had started his own business called Aquatic Apex Life, which he would use to sell the sharks from a website called monsterfishkeepers.com. Seguin's house was searched and investigators found a 15-foot above-ground pool in his basement, which is where he would house the sharks. 7 more of the same type of shark were found in the pool. Disturbingly, they also found leopard sharks that had died, a hammerhead shark that had also died, and the snout of another endangered fish, a small-tooth sawfish. The sharks that were found alive were transported to the New York Aquarium, based in Coney Island. After hearing this, Seguin pleaded guilty to the illegal possession of the sharks with the intent to sell and was ordered to pay a fine in the amount of $5,000. Number 3. In 2009, the Sessions family was growing, and parents Ben and Amber started looking for a bigger home that would be able to accommodate them and their children. Amber was pregnant, and they thought that they'd found the perfect house where they could welcome the new addition to the family. The house was perfect for a big family, boasting 5 bedrooms and plenty of space for the kids to play, as it was situated on a lot of acreage in Rexburg, Idaho. Just as ideal was the selling price. The Sessions were able to buy the new house for under $180,000, a price that seemed too good to be true, and they would eventually find out it was. After moving into their new home, the family noticed the ground around the house seemed to move on its own at times. They also noticed that the water, which came from a well outside, had a strange smell, often forcing them to eat out at restaurants rather than at home. Soon it became apparent that the source of the odor and the movement of the ground around the home came from hundreds of garter snakes that were infesting the property. The odor was one that was produced by the snakes when they were threatened by a predator and serves as a warning. Ben described the situation as living in a horror movie, with the couple often lying awake at night listening to the sound of the snakes moving around inside the walls of the home. Ben would wake up every morning, and before Amber and their children could get out of bed, he would check the entire house, clearing it of any snakes that had slithered into their space. Though one or two would sometimes go undetected, as Amber found out one day, nearly stepping on one of the creatures while she was doing laundry. Ben became increasingly worried that his wife would miscarry due to the stress and frights that the snakes were causing. The couple's children were also suffering, often having nightmares about the snakes and drawing pictures of being attacked by the creatures while in their beds and in the kitchen. On one occasion, Ben had killed 43 snakes in a single day, and that was when they decided that enough was enough, and Amber described it as living in Satan's lair. 3 months after purchasing the house, the family packed up and abandoned the property. Unfortunately, they'd signed a document noting the presence of the snakes, with their real estate agent assuring them that it was only a myth perpetuated by the former owners in order to leave their mortgage behind. The Sessions would eventually be forced to file for bankruptcy. Number 2. 36 Craven Street, located in London, is known for being the former home of Benjamin Franklin. At the time, Franklin was an ambassador at the court of St. James, and he would end up living at that address for more than 15 years between 1757 and 1775. As is the case with all historical buildings, restoration is needed from time to time to ensure that they don't fall into disrepair. And also, in 1998, conservationists started the painstaking task of repairing the old house with the aim of eventually turning it into a museum. As they set about their task, they gradually made their way to the basement, and to their surprise and horror, discovered over 1,200 bones that had been buried there. It would eventually be found that they were of human origin, and they belonged to at least 15 people. Forensic testing revealed that the bones dated to the time that Franklin would have been living in the house, but he didn't occupy the house alone. A medical student by the name of William Hewson, who was a close friend of Franklin, had been living in the house with him at the time. Hewson was intensely curious about human anatomy, and due to it being illegal to dissect a human body at the time, he was left dissatisfied with what he was able to learn during his studies. The church had decided that it was too taboo to explore the human body to such an extent, and so Hewson had to find another way to expand his knowledge on the subject. He would make contact with so-called cadaver brokers who would sell bodies illegally to those that needed them for whatever reason. He would also do business with grave robbers, going to any lengths necessary to acquire what he needed to further his research and knowledge. Conveniently, Franklin's house was also situated close to a wharf, making it easy for the bodies that had been brought in by ship to be taken back to the house during the night and brought to the basement via a door that led directly into the room. It seems unlikely that Franklin had any knowledge of the dealings and research that Hewson was conducting, and he left the house in 1775 when he moved back to America. Number 1. David Wallman was an employee at KOMO News in Seattle and arrived home on the 19th of July 2016, where he immediately noticed that something was out of place. Some of the lights inside of his house were burning, and although he wasn't immediately concerned, he thought that it was certainly out of the ordinary. Upon entering the house, Wallman found that a screen from his bathroom window was lying inside of the tub, but he didn't know what to make of it and went about his evening. Later that night, after he'd gone to bed, he awoke to the sound of someone in the house. He described the sounds of being those of someone rummaging through his belongings, and he decided to see if he could find out where the noises were coming from. At first, the sound seemed to be coming from the attic, and then right above him in the house's upper floor. Making his way upstairs, he noticed that his office door was locked and that the lights inside the room were on. He decided to knock on the door, not knowing who might be on the other side. He got no response from the inside and decided to find something that he could use as a weapon in case he needed to protect himself against whoever was in the house. He returned to the office and knocked once more. As he did so, he heard a woman's voice calling from the inside, asking, "Jimmy, is that you?" He responded that he was, in fact, not Jimmy, and asked her who she was and what she was doing in his property while dialing 911. A woman with shoulder-length dark hair, wearing gym pants and a track-style jacket, opened the door and he asked again who she was and what she was doing there. To which she replied that this was, in fact, her house and that someone named Jimmy had told her that she could live there. She had, after all, been living there for 3 days already. Wallman knew that police were responding to his call and attempted to keep the woman in the house until they arrived, but she managed to slip past him and escape the house in an unknown direction. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, be sure to click that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But I've been Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.